Today is the Kickoff, the first episode on Cloud Thrive. With everything happening in the world today, what does your next chapter in life look like? Well, there's nowhere to go but up, and great things are happening here, and I don't want you to miss out. Check out the description on whatever platform you're tuning in to keep connected. Also, don't forget, subscribe and share. This cloud is big enough for all of us. And with that, welcome to Cloud Thrive. Hey there, I'm DaiJuan, founder of Build, Rise, and Thrive Life Coaching in Washington, D.C. And again, I want to thank you guys for joining me here on Cloud Thrive. To get started, I want to make sure that we kind of lay a great foundation here. So clearing up what a coach is and what that partnership looks like. Working with a coach is a partnership where your choices are your own. Oftentimes, when we seek coaching, we have to remember that it's an investment in ourselves. So this podcast is your safe space, an opportunity to process, transition, and evolve from where you are to seek clarity, to understand better where you'd like to be. So when working with clients face-to-face, of course, they'll often tell you my 4 pillars as they continue to rise to greatness and achieve great things. We are realistic, we stay on target, we push through with a clear mind, always willing to rethink the possible, to seek clarity whenever needed, but most of all, we never give up until we thrive. So I want to jump right in with you guys. With this being the first show, I want to make sure that we really become laser focused on the phrase, I want to achieve. I know it's a bit odd, but when we talk about wanting to achieve, a few things usually happen to make sure that when we determine what goals we're going to move forward with, do we really take into consideration both parts? And often enough, I don't think we dive deeper into what those 2 parts are. So I'm going to break those 2 parts down for you today as we discuss the phrase, I want to achieve. And that's just your starting prompt. I think it's an amazing way for you to really start to determine what goals mean the most to you and what's the priority of that goal. Okay, so the 2 parts are you to make sure, the 2 parts are, excuse the rambling, but the 2 parts of trying to achieve a goal is making sure that your purpose is aligned and that your why is big enough. I'm going to say that one more time. Your purpose, because we have to make sure that we have a clear purpose and that your why is big enough. Because if your life's purpose is not in line with this goal that you're working to achieve, the road toward achieving this goal is not going to be an easy one, or there's going to be more resistance in that space. The second part to that is your why. Understanding what your why is and making sure that it's big enough is really going to be your motivator. When you start talking about achieving your goals and moving forward, have we taken into consideration some of the limitations that will be ahead of us as we're moving along this journey of achieving this goal? We have to make sure that there's a strong foundation in place, and those 2 are very vital to making sure that we are on the road of successfully and impactfully achieving whatever goal we put ahead of ourselves. I'd put it to you like this. If you were building a house, what's that house being built on? If the foundation isn't strong enough, then how can we expect for this goal, these achievements, and this success to be secured? At the first sign of bad weather or the first sign of challenge or resistance, is your house going to be sturdy enough or have a strong enough foundation to make sure that your goals and your achievements and everything that you've invested into achieving this goal is proper? Or for another word, like, is everything that you've invested, like, is this house going to make it through the most challenging parts that you might face? That's important. So I wanted to share those two parts with you because it's most definitely a it's a challenge when we talk about wanting to achieve goals, and we oftentimes put our goals on the back burner. And I challenge you to go back and actually look at why you put your goals on the back burner. Was it because your why wasn't big enough? Did you really have a need? What was the purpose? And if you achieve that goal, why were you going to achieve that goal? Dig deep and really pull back and find clarity around why you chose that goal. The second part is your purpose. What's your life's purpose? Where are you moving forward to? Have you determined what your purpose is, or have you uncovered it? Have you discovered this yet? And if you haven't, then let's start there. That would be a great place to really have a deeper conversation. Now, today, we're going to stick to understanding how we achieve these goals, and we're really working this phrase of I want to achieve, because those four words are powerful in themselves, because you are intentionally saying and putting out into your space that you are prepared to achieve, not simply do, not simply engage in, but you are intending to achieve a goal. And that's big. That's big. And I'm proud. Like, that's anytime someone is inspired or sparked to want to achieve a goal, oh, I'm all for it. I'm not going to stop you. So, we're going to talk in this next space how to build support or a support system to make sure that these three things are going to be strong enough to carry us through as we continue to achieve the goal. See, the first two I shared with you was your purpose and your why. Those are important, but there are three other pieces that are needed, and those pieces lie in how we build a strong support system to make sure that our goals are attainable and achievable for the most part. So I'm going to start to transition here so that we can start to discuss that. How many times do we get in the thick of having conversations around achieving goals and not leaving things on the back burner? Here's another one. So, I know for me, I postponed and I kept procrastinating and putting it off, and everything else was more important than just doing it and getting it out of the way and really just being great. Let me tell you something. Anchor removed all of those excuses and read me completely, because when I decided I'm going to do my podcast, Anchor was there for me for a number of reasons, but for the biggest reason, it was free. After that, I mean, everything was there. Like, all the tools were there. I was able to record what I needed. I could edit what I needed. I could get it out. It distributed everything. I thought I was going to have to sit there and reach out to Apple and reach out to Spotify and figure out all of the other podcast platforms. There are, first of all, too many to name. However, I didn't need to do that because Anchor did it for me. On top of that, I mean, there is no minimum listenership for you to earn money from your podcast. So, again, everybody can succeed, but your route to getting there is your own. However, Anchor is going to make it easier if creating the podcast is the thing to do, and that's on your list to achieve. So, stop playing, get on Anchor. I encourage it. Thanks. So before we jump back in, I want to make sure that, I had the opportunity to really talk to you guys about what's been going on in the world. I wanted to really make the most of the first episode. So all of the things that are happening, all of the things that are happening out there, you know, I want to make sure that you guys are keeping up with the information that's coming out. And I want to send a big shout out to a lot of my clients, a lot of my colleagues, and friends, and family. You guys are doing a great job in supporting your neighbors with groceries, supplies, and keeping a vigilant eye on things. It's not an easy time, and the best way to get through this is together. So I want to say again, thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot say it enough to all of the frontline workers, the back administrative workers. You guys are not spoken of as much, but you guys deserve so much of the credit. From the 911 operators and administrative staff who are seeing and dealing with this on the front lines, as well as the back end as well, you guys are impacted. And the appreciation goes out to you guys. I'm also engaged in a lot of the COVID efforts, and it is not an easy time for anyone, and everybody has to play their part during this time. Also, the country is hurting at this time. We need to be heard. Systematic racism is something that has caused damage to all of us, to every last single one of us. And it has bubbled over to a place that has caused the conversations to be had and actions are being taken. Currently, protests have spread across the country. Here in the US, officers are taking a knee, and we see that happening across the world. The problem America has right now is just taking the opportunity to acknowledge the racism that is here, and its implicit bias is it's seen, and it just will not be stood for anymore. Even to the point where we're seeing the protest in New Zealand, Canada, and Germany, just to name a few places. It's very troubling. It's extremely troubling, and what I will say is that it's a great place to seriously, if you are not of the African American community, or if you don't really understand what we are going through, I would seriously encourage you to have a listening ear and an open heart. Change is not easy, but it is necessary. Again, it is not easy, but it is necessary to be ingrained with a truth doesn't necessarily mean that it is the truth. And once we learn the truth, and once we understand from all sides what's happening, there has to be a space where we are able to right the wrongs in history. And I leave that for you all to further deepen this conversation over on social media, on our pages, or on the website, or emailing, or calling in to the podcast, or leaving your messages. I encourage it. But it has to happen. It just truly has to happen. And while I don't want to, we're going to have to pivot from this topic and move into this next section. Because I really wanted to go back to what we were discussing at the beginning of the show, which really talked about wanting to achieve your goals, and really talking about COVID and talking about what has happened to George Floyd. Really aligns with a lot of the actions that I'm starting to see take place and take shape here and across the world. Because when you want to say you want to, when we say, I do apologize, when we say we want to achieve something, we're not just saying those words. Something has motivated us, or something has motivated you. Something is pressing for you to make an impact somewhere. And so the same way we are given the motivation and we have that drive to achieve something, we also have to take into consideration why we put things on the back burner. What happened? Why did we lose momentum? And so that right there is a great space where we start to talk about taking it off of the back burner. Look at that goal again. What's most important to you about that specific goal? Why was it that goal to begin with? What drove you to want to achieve it? Find that spark and dig into it deeper, because things happen. But we really have to get to the center of why it was so important in that moment that you created the goal, why it was so important to you. And right now, it's why are we revisiting it? Because there has to be a reason, and I'm sure we're going to figure that out. With it, I want us to transition to those supporting tools, because again, I shared with you guys that there are 3 major pieces to making sure that not only are our goals realistic, but that they are achievable. The biggest piece to this is making sure that you have friends, family, and colleagues who are understanding and in tune and alignment with your purpose. Not just your goal, but your purpose. Because if they understand your purpose, then they understand really the big picture of you. And they have the best intentions for you. I would leave that so that you could kind of make those decisions about who would or would not fit in that circle closest to you as you start working toward this goal that is in line with your purpose. The second part to this is we want to make sure we put up or have in place a plan to deal with those blockers, those limitations that we oftentimes see coming toward us. So when things get hard, we start to pull back, or when the weather is bad, we become a bit shaken by kind of losing that momentum that we picked up. So we want to be able to address those. So really, the second piece is making sure that we have momentum management. We want to make sure that we manage the momentum that we put into this goal. We want to make sure that we have the capacity to achieve that goal. And that's very important and a very vital piece of that support tool. The third is your time. It sounds crazy, but it is your time. I get this from clients a lot where they're working towards something and they're so close, but then they feel this urge of burnout. And it could be the burnout from the millions of tasks that they need to complete to achieve this goal, or it could be just outlying things that are happening in life that they don't really have the opportunity to really deal with in that moment. So when I say your time, I truly do mean schedule time for yourself to meet with yourself. Treat yourself like the VIP. Check in with yourself. How are you doing? What do you need? How do you need to manage the next few days, the next few hours, and what does that look like? That's a very integral piece of working toward achieving your goal, but also making sure that you have a full uh, continuum of support around you as you work to achieve your goals. So all of the 5 tools, I believe, 5 that we discussed today, from top to bottom, the first 2 is to just look at the goal. And we want to make sure of the 2 things, and we're doing a recap here, is to make sure that your purpose is in line, well, the other way around, your goal is in line with your purpose. And the second part is when we look at the goal specifically, what's your why? And is it big enough? That's important. When we start talking about achieving that goal, we want to make sure we have impactful and very robust support around us as we continue to achieve this goal. And in order to do that, we want to make sure that we have the 3 things that we just discussed. your friends, your family, or those close to you who understand and are in line with your big picture vision. The second is making sure that you have that momentum management in place. How do you manage that momentum? What does that look like? So that if you do have a low day, what can you still achieve and do in that space? And if you're having a higher day or you're having a peak day, how do you keep yourself from going too far over? What does that look like? The third part is your time. You want to make sure that you are treating yourself the way you want to be treated outside of everything else. So meet with yourself like you're the CEO, the VP, you're in the C-suite. So block out maybe an hour, hour and a half. I mean, you could go and pamper yourself at home or do something that you thoroughly enjoy, but meet with yourself to check in. Do an icebreaker with yourself. Unwind a bit. Take a minute to just really come back to your center and be prepared to really just look at what you have achieved and really look at what you need, what's left to achieve, and how you begin to manage that space. So, one, I think that's awesome. We've worked through it all. And I want to say that you guys are awesome, and I am looking forward to you achieving your greatest goals. As we begin to come down from Cloud Thrive and champion through the rest of the week, I want you guys to remember to build strong, rise with intention, and thrive with courage and confidence to be the change you want to see. Again, this cloud is big enough for all of us, and don't forget to subscribe and share. With that, we'll connect again next week.